Well, today was an eventful day, long day. We just we had to get up this morning at 6 a.m., which doesn't seem too early until you realize that it's actually earlier than Oklahoma, 8 hours earlier than Oklahoma. So where we're all, from and used to. So anyway, I set my alarm for 5:15 because I wanted to make sure I got up. We had to pack and get in the van, the bus, and get all our stuff packed up. So anyway, Christy wasn't too happy with me for getting up so early, but so we started the day by having breakfast. It was actually pretty good. Coffee wasn't the best. No slingers. You guys, if you know me, I like coffee slingers, and drip coffee was better than the actual espresso that was made. So anyway, that's not the important thing. Got in the bus. We have this really nice bus, like real smooth. The roads remind me of Central America. They're real narrow, but man, we got a driver that just does a phenomenal job. His name is Ramses. Was it Ramses? Ramsey. So reminded us of Nacho Libre. So anyway, he's a great driver. Our tour guide's name is Saliba, and he's been doing tours for 25 to 30 years. I heard two different numbers, but great guy, very knowledgeable, tells you more information than you'd ever want to know about all sorts of things. And so we started the day in Caesarea, and really, it was really interesting, just the theater, seeing the place where Paul started all of his journeys. What's that?
The port.
Yeah, the port right there where he started his journeys. Heard a lot about the Herods. There's 5 different Herods that were kings, and all here in the Bible, and they say Herod or Herod Antipa, and there's Herod Agrippa and all that stuff. The
Herodian era.
It's the Herodian era. So very interesting. Where Paul was at house arrest for 2 years before he was sent to Rome to be tried, and wrote many of his letters from Caesarea. Really cool. We also, after that, went to Megiddo, which is the mountain or the hill. It's really just a hill that overlooks the Valley of Armageddon. And really, to me, it's fascinating because we got to be on Megiddo, and to the left, we could see where Elijah on Mount Carmel did the kind of the competition, I guess you say, of the gods with God and the god of Baal, where he called down fire from heaven. So you could see it on the left, and then you saw on the right across the Valley of Armageddon where he actually ran and beat the chariots there to pronounce the victory of God. Interesting thing about the Valley of Armageddon that hadn't really considered when we were standing there on top of Megiddo. He says we have the past, we can see the past, we see the present, and the future, and it all kind of comes together there in the Valley of Armageddon. I also heard him say that the valley there is God's playground, just because all the historical events happen across the valley and different mountains across the way. So you could see, you could see places like Nazareth from there. You could see places like, of course, the Mount Carmel, Hebron, all across the valley. You could see the different biblical sites. So that was really, really fun to see. From there, we went to eat lunch on the way to Mount Carmel. Lunch was good. It was chicken skewers and falafels and a lot of Mediterranean Israeli food, so it was really good. From there we went up to Mount Carmel and didn't have much time there, but we had a little bit of time to kind of look over the valley there again. If you remember the story of Mount Carmel where Elijah had this competition, where he called down, one of the lines which Pastor Mark Hodges said was, are you gonna dance between two opinions? If God is God, then serve him. If not, serve Baal. And the crowd that was listening stayed quiet. So, but we were there on Mount Carmel just for a moment. But if you remember the end of the story, when the fire came down, the prophets of Baal were all gathered together, and they were killed. And when we looked down the valley, there was this little mound at the bottom of the mountain there, where that took place. So that was interesting. From there, we went to Nazareth. Nazareth, where Jesus grew up. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and then him and his family fled to Egypt because Herod wanted all the children dead. And then when they came back, to Nazareth, they settled back to Israel. They settled in Nazareth. When we pulled up to this little site where we saw the Nazareth area, it was it was right next to a YMCA of Nazareth. So Christy got herself a YMCA from Nazareth shirt. Christy goes to the YMCA there in Oklahoma City, so that was kind of interesting. Took some pictures. That was fun. Walking around, we saw an olive grove, and also almonds. We also saw just little dwellings that were right there in Nazareth. He said within 500 meters of where Jesus grew up, so Jesus would have known that place. Kind of back to the Mount Carmel, something struck me when I was sitting there. It was like the battle of the gods. You know, the Baal was a problem with the Israelites as they had settled in the land of Canaan, and serving Baal was just like serving the gods of the nations, the God of this world. And so sitting there, it kind of struck me. I was listening to Pastor Mark as he was speaking, but then my mind just kind of went. I told Christy, I wish we had something to put on our faces just to dissolve what's actually there, so that we could see, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago on the plains there. But really interesting, sitting there and imagining Elijah putting up the crude altar, and then putting the sacrifice on the altar, and then pouring water in the middle of a drought on the altar, where the water just was soaking it, and it hadn't rained for 3 years. And as we were looking over the valley there where this spiritual battle took place, there was a cloud that was coming from across the valley, and it was bringing rain. And I could, in that moment, I could just see the competition. The sky was clear. It says the prophets of Baal would cut themselves and yell and scream and dance and calling out to the God of Baal, and yet he was silent. And Elijah made fun of him. He's like, well, maybe he's on vacation, or maybe he's sleeping, or he might be in the toilet. I mean, he said all sorts of things, just making fun of the prophet, or of Baal. And scripture says that in the moment that Elijah called out to God to bring fire down, today our guide said that Baal, there's an image of Baal, and he has a fire bolt in his hand. And that's exactly what Elijah asked God to rain down on the sacrifice, was fire. Basically dismantling the power of Baal in one flash. And then he took off running from there all the way across the valley, beat the chariots. He said the valley was a swamp, and so the chariots got kind of brought up in the muck with the rain. And so if you can imagine a clear sky for 3 years, and then Elijah in a word called rain back, and then the rain came through the valley and just swept away the valley with the rain. Really cool day. So we left Nazareth, and now we're sitting right beside the Sea of Galilee. It's dark. It gets dark here about 5:30. So by the time we got here, it was dark, and we haven't seen the sea, but we see a dark space over there where the Sea of Galilee is. We're staying near Tiberias, and really excited about what's going to happen over the next few days. But it's tiring. We're going to have dinner. Probably going to have an early night so we can get up again tomorrow morning before sunrise to go on day 2. So this day 1 was definitely interesting and captivating to actually see the places, even though there's modern buildings and structures, and there's mosques in lots of neighborhoods. There's these Muslim spires across different neighborhoods as well. There's Christianity, there's Judaism, there's Islam. There's all sorts of different religious practices right here in this area, and the population is just living on top of each other. really, really fascinating to see where all this began as far as the Christianity goes in our journey, and to be able to walk actually on these places that as a kid I saw as fascinating stories, from Armageddon in Revelation to Mount Carmel in First Kings. So hope you guys have a great day. I know it's in the middle of the day there in Oklahoma, and it's really good to connect and just kind of let you know what happened today. I'm going to speak in Spanish for a minute if any of my Costa Rican friends hung out this long. Amigos, no sé si pudieron aguantar tanto tiempo en línea, pero en este momento nada más les estaba comentando a mis amigos en Estados que hemos podido visitar varios lugares aquí en Israel, primer día, y es un momento donde hemos podido experimentar caminar donde Jesús había caminado, hasta en Nazaret, en el pueblo que él creció como niño, y después donde Elías hizo su gran milagro, clamando a Dios de mandar fuego a quemar el sacrificio. Fue un buen día, y lo más impresionante es que estuvimos arriba en un lugar que se llama Megido, que es viendo sobre el valle de Armagedón, donde va a hacer la última batalla antes de Jesús conquistar y reinar por la eternidad. Saludos, que les vaya bien. Nos hablamos después.